This is part 2 of 3 parts looking at how the energy changes as we work our way from the Ace of Wands to the Ten of Wands. So in this part we will look at the Five of Wands called Strife, the Six of Wands called Victory, and the Seven of Wands called Valor. This is only going to be a skim through because the detail is really in the individual tutorials on each particular card. So in the previous video, just to recap, we looked at the Ace, which resides in Keter. The energy then went through Hokmar in the Two of Wands. Next came the Three of Wands in B.O.T.A, and we ended up with completion in the Four of Wands in Hesed here. So in terms of the astrology, again, we'll just a very quick recap on just exactly what was happening there. In the first decan here, we had the Two of Wands, Dominion, which was Mars in Aries. This proved favourable because Mars is the natural ruler of this first decan here, and it is also the natural ruler of Aries, so it's like a double dose of Mars is strengthened sort of twice in this particular card, and therefore you get this strong outpouring of the suit of Wands in the Two. In the Three we have the influence of the Sun, and we have these orangey yellow colours. Now the Sun, this proved again to be a favourable card because the Sun is exalted in Aries, which means it is strengthened, and obviously the Sun is the centre of our solar system, and it is the source of life, and it shines favourably in the second decan here, where it is very well placed, being exalted in Aries. In the Four of Wands we actually had Venus in Aries. Now Venus is the natural ruler, or now I think co-ruler of Libra here. Libra was 180 degrees away from Aries, so you'd think that those were quite that this would be quite an alien environment for Venus to be in, but it proved again favourable as we had this card completion here, and it bestowed its positive energies within the sign of Aries, and therefore we got this circle, such as that which can be represented as completed work, projects that have been finished, and we have a kind of a balance here. So there's certainly nothing in these 3 cards that is proved anyway particularly challenging. So now we move on and we'll see how the energy changes, because we've got now the card of Strife, which will be in Gebera or Gebora here in the 5th Sephiroth. In the 6th Sephiroth here we've got Victory, and in the 7th Netzach we've got Valor. So we've moved on from the Aries decans to the Leo decans, and in part 3 we look at the decans of Sagittarius, and that will conclude the skim through of the Wands. So starting with the Five of Wands, again this is very brief. It's Strife, and it represents the first decan here, 0 to 10 degrees of the sign of Leo, which is a fixed sign. So we're no longer in Aries now, but we're in Leo. And the Five of Wands, in such as a deck as the Rider-Waite, comes under the same planet and sign as the Thoth equivalent, so this applies equally to the Rider-Waite deck. So with the Five of Wands we've got Saturn here, which you can see on the Adeptus wand, and Leo. I guess we should just briefly mention the characteristics of Leo, considering this is a new sign. Leo is associated with strong leaders, being extrovert or expressive or creative, pride, affectionate, the like affection, like giving affection, loyal, and like the good things in life. Again, that's very simplistic, but it's a starting point. The Five of Wands is also associated with B.O.T.A, this fifth Sephiroth here, which is ruled by Mars. And so we have Saturn in Leo. Leo rules lust here, which replaces the strength card in the Rider-Waite deck. And so you've got this very, in this case, sexual card, and very expressive. But with Saturn is, well, it's within the death card here. As you can see, the scythe here has its Saturn influences, because you've got the legs of the figure here and the body here, and that again represents the glyph of Saturn, even though this card is ruled by Scorpio. And you've also got Saturn represented by this scythe coming out of the Eye of Horus here in the Universe card. Saturn is all about limits and restriction, structure, responsibility. You see it in the death card here, where we've got the limitation of time, death and rebirth. And again, coming out of the Eye of Horus here, you've got time associated with the universe here and the world. And you've got this very free flowing energy, or very powerful energy that's coming out and expressed in the lust card. So you've got some very different energies here. You've got Leo that wants to express, you've got Saturn that wants to limit. So Saturn and Leo clash, because Saturn wants to organize and restrict the free flowing and expressive nature of the fire of Leo. So in this card we get discord, even though it does provide an opportunity of growth. These conflicts here, due to strife, can be either inner or outer conflicts. You see it more in the Rider-Waite card, and I'll just get that up. So we have a version of the Rider-Waite card, and you see 5 figures in conflict. The symbolism of the Five of Wands here is very detailed, and I go through that in detail in the specific tutorial on this card. Just to give you an idea of comparison, I'll just show you the Seven of Wands, which we also talk about in this video. So here we have the Seven of Wands, and again you've got this conflict here, but he's almost beating these sticks down, so he's actually managing the situation. It's just taking all of his effort to stay where he is, rather than being completely embroiled here. So in a sense, the Seven has a different type of energy. So this card of the Five of Wands can represent both outer and inner conflicts. It could be conflicts at work where we are not able to express ourselves. Maybe we were restricted by the rules of an organisation. Could be relationship orientated, in which we are unable to be our real self. 2 very simple examples there. Or it could be inner conflicts where we feel naturally repressed and that we can't really say what's on our mind, or we're not really the person we really want to be. So this card does, for the first time in the suit of Wands, bring up some strife and something that really throws us back on ourselves, so we have to work through that. But as I said here, it is an opportunity for growth as long as we can move on and find victory in the Six of Wands, which we'll talk about next. So here we have the Six of Wands, and we've got victory. It's to do with the second decan here, which is Jupiter in Leo. So victory obviously means success, triumph. You've got a much more harmonious looking card here, and there's a certain sense of symmetry and balance with the flames here burning quite steadily and controlled. So the 6 gets its harmony from being in direct contact with Keter, the ace, and this is a path represented by the High Priestess between Keter and Tiphereth. Tiphereth, the 6 Sephiroth, is associated with Christ consciousness. It's a channel which has its direct access to spirit in the ace, and it is known as the Sephiroth of harmony and beauty. So here we have Jupiter in Leo. Jupiter is a very expansive planet. It's expanding our view of the world. It's to do with growth. In Roman mythology, Jupiter was the ruler of the gods, and so here we have victory. And with that victory comes increased responsibility. I put the Strength card here because the Strength card is ruled by Leo. And we see the lion here, and this is a lady who is controlling the animal instincts here. Or it's more that she's just gently guiding the animal's jaws here. So it's again it indicates a harmony here, but very different from the Lust card here in the Thoth deck, where you've got a lot of well, the card represents sexual alchemy, so that is like not just from an individual point of view, but from a universal point of view. So two very different illustrations of the same energy, but we'll again move back to Jupiter in Leo. So I think particularly in the Crowley deck, you've got this representation of the outpouring of the energy of the wands in Leo, and Leo itself wants to be expressive and extrovert, and Jupiter is very expansive, and putting the two together we get a very favourable outcome. Jupiter also rules the Fortune card, or Wheel of Fortune as the Rider-Waite deck illustrates it, and what it is saying is that when the Six of Wands appears in a spread, that this Wheel of Fortune turns in a positive way, and therefore we get a favourable outcome with the Six of Wands card. Just as a final note, I've said just before moving on to the 7 that victory might mean an inner, or again similar to the 5, I think I put that on there, the victory may mean like an outer victory in our material world, or it could mean an inner victory. I mean, this whole journey of the tarot is ultimately an inner journey. It is an inner spiritual path, whether you're talking about the minors, the majors, or even the court cards. As you can see, I've included the majors in a lot of this. So I mean, ultimately it is the spiritual journey, and that's what my videos tend to promote. First and foremost, with the divinatory aspects secondary. But anyway, we now move on to the final decan and the Valor card. So Valor is the last card I'm going to be talking about in part 2 on the series of wands. Valor I've defined as courage in the face of danger. That's one particular aspect of Valor, and it is associated with the third decan of Leo, which is 20 to 30 degrees, and we have a planetary ruler of Mars. The glyph of Mars is here and of Leo here. I'm just going to take you to the 3 cards from the beginning slide. If you notice, these glyphs are skewed, and it's one of the few cards in which this actually happens. I'm not sure if another one does actually, I'm sure it does, but it's very rare. I think there's only 2 at most. Most of the cards have the glyphs set in a central position within the card. Here, this skewing of the glyphs indicates a distortion of the energies, which makes this card potentially quite a difficult card. If we look at the flames here, they're dispersed, they're irregular, they're not of the harmonious nature of the 6, or even have the direction and solidity of the 5. And we can see this reflected in when I look at the Rider-Waite cards. So this card is associated with the 7th sphere or Sephiroth, which is Netzach, which means victory or endurance, which does tie into Valor. It's ruled by Venus, this particular Sephiroth, which is a very it's not in this particular card a complementary energy to Mars, because Venus is not concerned with practicalities, and as we'll see, Mars in Leo people tend to be quite driven in their ambitions. The energy of Mars directed into Leo produces people with high principles. They often go into battle defending those principles. The life wants to take on a significant meaning and direction, and they will fight for that. Mars is also associated in the major arcana with the Tower, as I've mentioned in the initial video on Aries, or the Decan of Aries, where we had Mars associated with the 2 of Wands and the first Decan of Aries there. So again, we've got this rather unpredictable Martian energy playing out within this particular card. So as I mentioned, these energies here of the flame is more dispersed. Going back to this Rider-Waite comparison here, you've got the wand here, and it's trying to control the energies and the influences of the other wands here, and therefore obviously he's got to move this wand around, and so he can't be in 2 places at once, and therefore the energy of this one gets spent in actually controlling and suppressing the remaining ones. So the 7 of Wands in a reading indicates those situations which we may encounter that may be very demanding and formidable on the surface, and we really need to have courage to face that situation, but we really need to just believe in ourselves and stick to our own principles, our own path, use that inspiration of the wands that's been directed by Mars into our naturally creative self, represented by Leo, and in doing so we'll be able to basically grow from the challenge. So that's this card in a nutshell, explained in regards to its position on the Tree of Life, its position within the Suit of Wands and the astrological association. We'll finish this trip through the wands in the part 3, where we will look at the Decan of Sagittarius.